Picture this. You are Claudia, a 13-year-old girl in the bustling heart of Rome. It's the year 62 AD. The sun has barely risen above the tiled rooftops of the Suburra district, but your household is already buzzing with activity. Servants are scrubbing the marble floors. Your mother is whispering urgent instructions to a seamstress, and your father, normally gruff and distant, is unusually quiet. You sit still as two older slaves braid your hair into 6 tight plaits, each one representing your passage from childhood to womanhood. A white tunic has been laid out on your bed, cinched with a wool belt knotted in a ritual only your husband will be permitted to untie. That is his right, his alone. You are being prepared for your wedding, not because you fell in love, not because you asked for this, but because Roman law and your father's ambition have decided that today you stop being a girl and begin the life of a Roman bride. You haven't seen your husband to be in more than passing glances. He is 27, you are 13. The marriage was arranged months ago, sealed not with affection but with a handshake between your father and your future father-in-law. A dowry of silver and land was exchanged. It was all business. You were never consulted. In fact, under Roman law, your consent isn't even required. You are your father's property until this afternoon, then you will belong to another man. What you don't yet understand is that this marriage is not the beginning of your life. For many girls like you in ancient Rome, it's the beginning of a long, quiet kind of death. In Rome, marriage wasn't about love. It was about status, lineage, and political advantage. Brides were commodities, vessels for producing heirs and binding alliances between families. For wealthy patricians, a good match could elevate a family's power for generations. For plebeians, it could mean protection, citizenship, or simply a better roof over your head. But for the girls themselves, it meant obedience, silence, and an erasure of identity so complete that even your name would be swallowed by the expectations of your husband's household. The rituals begin long before the ceremony itself. At dawn, you're stripped of your childhood toys, literal symbols of your girlhood burned as an offering to the household gods. Your bulla, the protective amulet you wore since infancy, is torn from your neck and placed on the altar. You will never wear it again. Your innocence, your protection, it all ends today. Your mother tries to smile as she paints your face with white chalk to mimic the look of ancient brides who were once led to marriage as prizes of conquest. You look like a ghost in the mirror, pale, hollow-eyed, trembling beneath layers of tradition you barely understand. When the time comes, your father places your hand in that of your husband-to-be and pronounces the marriage in the formulaic words, Ubi tu Gaius, ego Gaia. Where you are Gaius, I am Gaia. It is meant to symbolize unity, loyalty, devotion, but it also means surrender. In the eyes of the law, you have now left your father's authority and entered your husband's manus, his control. You are no longer your father's daughter. You are your husband's property. The wedding feast is lavish, full of laughter and song, but you eat little. The weight of your wool veil is suffocating. The guests admire your quiet demeanor. Modesty, they say, is the sign of a good Roman wife. They don't know that the silence is not virtue, it's fear. And when the sun begins to set, the crowd cheers as your husband carries you across the threshold of his home. Not because it is romantic, but because it mimics an ancient war ritual, when brides were once abducted as spoils of conquest. Roman marriage never forgot its origins in violence. Even now, centuries later, that echo of capture remains. Inside the home, you are surrounded by strangers. Women you don't know, his mother, his sisters, his slaves, show you to your room. You remove your veil, your tunic, you kneel at the marital bed and pray to Venus, to Juno, to any goddess who might pity you. And then, your husband enters. That first night is not your choice. It never was. In Rome, consummation was expected, demanded, on the very night of the wedding. Your cries, your trembling, your pain, none of it matters. Roman law recognized no such thing as marital rape. In fact, a husband had absolute sexual rights over his wife. Consent, for you, is a concept that doesn't exist. Tomorrow, you will rise early to begin your duties. Not just cooking, cleaning, and spinning wool, but learning how to bear children. A Roman matrona is valued not for her mind, but her fertility. Producing sons is your most sacred obligation, and you will be reminded of that every time you fail to conceive. You are 13 years old, you are a child. But in the eyes of Rome, you are now a woman. Morning comes with the pounding of your heart. You do not sleep. You lay awake in that wide marriage bed, your body aching, your thoughts scattered like dry leaves in a storm. Somewhere deep inside, you still feel the child you were yesterday, but Rome does not care. Rome expects you to rise, to smile, to become the perfect Roman wife. Silent, obedient, fertile. A servant knocks on the door before sunrise. You are escorted, still stiff from the night before, into the atrium, where your new household greets you not as Claudia, but as Matrona. They look at you differently now. Your mother-in-law studies you like livestock. Will she give us a strong grandson? Will she survive childbirth? These questions hang in the air, unspoken but heavy. Breakfast is small. Bread, olives, honey. But your appetite has vanished. Your husband speaks to you for the first time since last night. Not tenderly, not cruelly, just instructions. You are to oversee the household slaves. You are to learn the domestic rhythms of this house. You are to begin preparing for pregnancy. In Rome, a bride is not truly a wife until she has produced an heir. And not just any child, a legitimate son, a citizen, a future warrior, senator, or heir to your husband's estate. Your womb is no longer yours. It is the future of your husband's bloodline, and all eyes are watching to see if it will perform. You are given herbal tonics, told to avoid cold water, encouraged to pray at the temple of Juno Lucina, goddess of childbirth. You obey. Everyone tells you stories of girls your age who delivered healthy sons, who bled to death from labor, who were cursed by the gods for failing to conceive. You listen, you nod. But inside, you're screaming. You hear whispers in the peristyle garden that your husband has already taken a concubine, just in case you fail, that he had another bride before you, who died in childbirth at 15. No one speaks of these things directly, but in the corners of Roman households, truth always leaks, like smoke through the cracks. When your bleeding stops the following month, the women celebrate. You are pregnant. At 13. Your husband is pleased. You're rewarded with a new necklace of carved ivory and allowed to sit beside him at dinner, but your stomach twists, not with morning sickness, but with fear. In Rome, childbirth is the most dangerous task a woman can undertake. There are no painkillers, no antiseptics, no trained doctors for women like you, only midwives, some experienced, some not. The mortality rate is high. 1 in every 4 Roman women dies in childbirth. You have seen the funerary statues, you have heard the weeping songs. The months crawl by, your belly grows, your ankles swell, your back aches. You are kept indoors, away from the sun, away from visitors. Your husband rarely speaks to you now. His job is done. You are just waiting. And when labor comes, it is not with fanfare, but terror. You scream through the night as midwives press hot oil against your skin, mutter prayers to Lucina, and prepare sharp tools, just in case. Hours pass. Days blur. You are delirious from pain. You think of your mother. You think of the dolls you once burned. You think of the gods and ask why they made your life this. And then you hear it, a cry. A boy. The household rejoices. Your son is washed in wine and laid at his father's feet. He will be named on the 8th day if he survives. You, however, are barely breathing. Fever takes you. Your body shakes. You hear the midwife whisper that they must pack you with herbs and cloth to stop the bleeding. You survive, barely, and as you hold your swaddled son, so tiny, so unaware, a nursemaid informs you with reverence, you are now a true Roman wife. But motherhood brings no peace. Your child is taken from you by a wet nurse, an older slave woman whose milk is considered stronger, more fortifying. You are not allowed to nurse him yourself. That is not your role. Your job is to recover and to prepare for the next pregnancy. Because in Rome, marriage is not a love story. It is a production line. The average Matrona gives birth 5 to 10 times in her lifetime, if she survives. And if she fails to produce sons, her husband may divorce her, legally, publicly, without shame. Roman law allows divorce for infertility, disobedience, even for being too talkative. A woman's voice is tolerated only in whispers, her laughter considered vulgar, her opinions dangerous. You learn this quickly the first time you question a family decision at dinner. Your husband raises an eyebrow, and your mother-in-law hisses beneath her breath. Later that night, you are scolded. Not cruelly, but coldly. You are reminded that Roman wives do not speak above their station. Your world shrinks. You no longer visit the marketplace. You no longer walk the gardens alone. Even your reading is monitored. Philosophy is discouraged. Poetry, unless it glorifies duty, is hidden away. You miss your mother, but you do not write to her, because letters are read before they're sent. And besides, you are no longer her daughter. You are someone else's now. You hear rumors that in some households, wives are locked away in the gynoeceum, a women's chamber where they are kept like cloistered birds, that some husbands beat their wives for miscarriages, or for disobedience, or simply because they can. You begin to understand what every Roman bride learns sooner or later, that your body is not yours, that your silence is your survival, that love is a luxury you will never afford, and you smile when guests arrive. You speak sweetly to your husband. You learn to perform your role with grace, because the alternative is exile, shame, or worse, replacement, and so you endure, because you must. It is now your 3rd year of marriage. You are 16, you've buried one child, your second, a girl who lived only 2 days. Your body was too weak from the previous birth, and the midwife's hands shook as she cut the cord. Your husband didn't cry, he simply turned away when told the child was female. No feast, no name, no offerings to the gods. The baby was buried in the garden, beneath a laurel tree. You weren't permitted to attend. No one speaks of her, and so you learn to forget. But Rome does not forget. Rome keeps records. Your familia watches. Every month you bleed without conception is noted. Your husband grows quieter. His mother grows louder. And one day during the midday meal, she asks, half in jest, half in threat, if he's considered taking another wife. You laugh politely. Your hands tremble under the table. Legally, he can leave you at any time. All he must do is declare the marriage void in front of witnesses, and Roman law will side with him, always. For a woman, divorce brings disgrace. For a man, it brings freedom. But sometimes, even divorce is a mercy, because some husbands, bored or cruel, find other ways to manage a difficult wife. They invoke the patria potestas, the father's power. In Rome, even grown married daughters remain under their father's legal authority, unless explicitly transferred to the husband through manus. This means your husband can petition your father to punish you, send you back, imprison you, disown you. And if your father refuses, your husband can act on his own. Roman law permits a husband to strike his wife, to confine her, to deny her food. If she commits adultery or is even suspected of it, he may kill her, legally, if caught in the act. You have no such rights in return. Even your gaze must be careful. Wives are forbidden from dining with men outside the family, visiting temples without permission, laughing too freely in public. One glance too long, one whisper too soft, and you may be accused of stuprum, moral indecency. And once your reputation is questioned, it can never be restored. The poet Juvenal warned that Roman wives were too cunning, too sly, too fond of makeup and sorcery. He mocked women who read philosophy. He scorned those who drank wine, implying they were likely to cheat. Satirists like him shaped public opinion, and their venomous words became weapons in the mouths of husbands, fathers, and magistrates. You no longer speak freely. You no longer walk unaccompanied. But you watch, you learn, and in the quiet hours you begin to understand the unspoken language of Roman women. The subtle nods, the coded phrases, the glances that say, "I see you. I understand." Behind the walls of Rome, beneath the weight of marble and silence, a sisterhood survives. You learn of women who keep secret scrolls, Ovid, Sulpicia, Sappho, hidden behind household gods, of widows who quietly support abused wives, offering refuge in their villas beyond the city, of midwives who pass herbs to end unwanted pregnancies, risking execution with every secret dose. You even hear whispers of women who take lovers, carefully, discreetly, who leave their beds at night through servant passages, who send coded messages in embroidery and scented oils. Adultery, for them, is not pleasure. It's rebellion, a way to remember that they are still alive. You do not take that path, but you do begin to push back. You read philosophy in secret. You memorize lines from Epictetus, from Seneca. You begin to teach your son to question the world, to think of women as more than vessels. It is dangerous. It is small, but it is yours. And one day, when your mother-in-law insults a slave girl for dropping a platter, you gently contradict her. The room goes still, your husband's eyes narrow. Later that night, he reminds you of your place, firmly, physically, and for 3 days you do not speak. But something has shifted. You've tasted your voice again, and you are not ready to lose it. Even in Rome, even under the marble weight of law and custom, resistance survives. Quietly, patiently, you begin to visit the temple of Bona Dea, open only to women. There, surrounded by others like you hear laughter again. Real laughter. Not polite. Women of every class, slaves, matrons, courtesans, share stories in whispers and song. You learn how to grind certain seeds into paste to delay conception. You learn how to manipulate dowry clauses to maintain some control over your wealth. You learn that a well-placed friend, a cousin on the magistrate's staff, a priestess with a good reputation, can be more valuable than gold. You are still trapped, but now you know the shape of the cage, and that knowledge is its own kind of power. And then something happens that changes everything. Your husband falls ill, not gravely, but enough to make him dependent on your care. Suddenly the balance shifts. He needs your steadiness, your patience, your presence. And for the first time, you see his face soften. He begins asking for your thoughts, first on household matters, then on family, politics, even philosophy. You tread carefully, but you speak. And in those candlelit hours, as you read aloud from Cicero or recite verses you once hid beneath your bed, you find not only his attention, but his respect. Not love, not quite, but something close, and it's enough. For now, you are 29 now. 16 years have passed since your wedding, since your bulla was torn from your neck, since you were led across the threshold like a prisoner entering her cell. And in that time, you've endured much. You've borne 4 children, buried 2. You've managed a household of 16 slaves, negotiated trade contracts on behalf of your husband, and sat silently in rooms where senators debated the fate of provinces. Rooms where your voice was never welcome, but your presence was expected. And somehow, through all of it, you have endured. Your husband is a senator now, a quiet man with ambition that outweighs his courage. He has not struck you in years, not since the sickness. He even defers to you in private, when no one is watching. You've become something like a confidant, a partner, but always at a careful distance. You've learned how to speak without seeming to lead, how to influence without command, how to wear the veil of obedience while working quietly behind it. This, too, is survival. Outside the walls of your villa, the world changes. Nero is dead. Civil war tears through the Republic's old bones like rot through marble. Plots unfold in the Senate, poisonings in the palace, crucifixions on the Appian Way. But inside your home, things are still, almost too still, because now you are approaching a new and dangerous threshold. You are no longer a bride. You are becoming older. In Rome, a young wife is valued. A mother of sons is respected. But an aging matron? She is watched. You notice it in the eyes of your husband's new colleagues, in the way younger women are brought to your home during feasts, giggling and perfumed, in the way your own daughters, growing taller now, eyes wide and fearful, are dressed in white tunics and veils, prepared for the same fate you once suffered. You try to delay their marriages. You fail. You try to soften their path. You succeed, just slightly. You negotiate better dowries. You insist on more respectful men. But you cannot save them, not fully. And you know it. You realize, as you braid their hair in 6 plaits and press kisses to trembling foreheads, that you have become the very figure you once feared, an architect of compliance, a builder of cages. And yet, you cannot walk away. Not in Rome, not without consequences. But one day, everything changes. Your husband dies. It is sudden. Chest pain after a long meal, a collapse near the fountain, the startled cries of servants. You are not in the room. You arrive only to find his body being carried into the atrium, his eyes already dim, his hands already cooling. You do not weep, not yet. Instead, you kneel beside him and close his eyes with practiced grace. And when the morning rites begin, when the coins are placed over his eyes and the mourners wail in rhythm beneath the colonnades, you sit in the shadows and feel free. Not happy, not relieved, just weightless. Because in death, your husband has given you something he never could in life, legal autonomy. You are now a vidua, a widow. And unlike a wife, a widow in Rome can own property, can inherit wealth, can represent herself in court. If your father is dead, which yours is, no man has patria potestas over you anymore. You are, in the eyes of Rome, a free woman, for the first time. But Rome, even in this, does not forget its control, because now the pressure begins again. Remarry, they say. A widow without a husband is suspicious, dangerous. Who will watch over your daughters? Who will secure your lineage? You are still young enough to bear children, they remind you. You refuse. They gossip. You lose dinner invitations. You are whispered about in the market, but you do not care, because for the first time, you can read openly. Write letters in your own name, fund the education of your surviving son, visit temples without permission, speak your mind in your own home. And when a former slave woman, now free, comes to you seeking protection from her abusive husband, you offer her shelter, quietly, discreetly, but with purpose. And as the years pass, you become something else entirely, a matrona libera, a woman both feared and respected, not because you wielded power, but because you endured its absence and survived it. You still carry the scars, you still dream of the laurel tree, but you also remember the candlelit readings, the laughter at Bonadea's temple, the coded glances shared across crowded rooms. You begin to write, quietly, in scrolls kept hidden in the base of a statue. Not poetry, not history, but truth. Truth about what it means to be a bride in Rome. Not the sanitized myths sung by poets or praised in speeches, but the real truth, the burning of childhood, the silence of obedience, the bleeding, the bruising, the bargaining, and the slow, brutal alchemy by which girls were turned into ghosts before they even lived. You write it all. You do not know if your words will survive, but they exist now, and that is enough. Because someday another girl may find them, and she will know. She will understand that the pain was not hers alone, that others walked the same path, endured the same darkness, and still, somehow found light on the other side. And maybe, just maybe, she will write too. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments below, not just for the women of ancient Rome, but for every voice that was silenced by tradition, yet refused to disappear. And if you're ready to explore more of history's buried truths, click on the video now appearing on your screen. Let's uncover the past, one forgotten story at a time. Subscribe, because history isn't dead. It was silenced, and now it's time to listen.